Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everyone that is in here in person, those that are online, and those who are watching later. Baruch Habaim. We are going to be doing a lot of Hebrew today. Yay.
Yeah.
But we are starting over the new cycle of Torah portions again. And this parasha actually starts in Genesis 1:1 and goes through chapter 6, verse 8. And this parasha is a long one. And there are a lot of details, and there are many items that we could choose to delve into. For example, like the each day of creation, we can look at. We could look at the Garden of Eden. We could look at Cain and Abel. We could look at the mark of Cain. We could look at patterns with the temple and civilizations to Noah. And so there's lots of different things we could cover. But with each parashot, I hope you can see that Yah's plan and Mashiach. And so this parasha, I think, holds lots of hidden secrets that can be revealed if you're looking at the Hebrew. And so in the past, we've discussed each day of creation, and we've gone through looking at each one of those. One year we did it just on the Garden of Eden and how I, believe that lines up being the Garden of Eden being in Jerusalem, and how the pattern of the garden looks like the temple or the tabernacle. And that corresponds also with the New Jerusalem. But this year, I felt like I just wanted to mostly focus on Yeshua.
All right.
And where is Yeshua? Okay. So before we get into the Torah portion, we are going to go to John chapter 5. Okay, so John chapter 5. And I want to go to verse 46. And look at what Yeshua is saying here. For if you really believed Moshe, you would believe me, because it was about me that he wrote. So, where do we find Yeshua in Moshe's writings?
All through it.
All through it. But a lot of times we don't necessarily see some of those hidden things that are pointing to him from the very beginning. Even, and this is a verse that we've read before, Isaiah 46:10, which says, at the beginning, I announced the end. So we know Yeshua didn't come until like after 4,000 years. And so from the very beginning, he was announced. And so Yah tells his whole plan from the beginning. And what book is the beginning? We call it Genesis in English, but in Hebrew, it is Bereshit. So, Brad Scott, I know years ago, had once used this analogy about all children will always, when you give them a piece of paper when they're little and ask them to draw a picture of their family or whatever, usually they'll draw a house and they'll draw a mom and a dad, and they'll, usually put, like maybe a tree in the yard or some flowers in the yard or something like that. And he's like, every kid does this picture, no matter where they are in the world, they will draw a picture like this. And he said, really, this is the whole plan of Yah, even from the very beginning, because it is about him building a house, him building a family, and a piece of land. And that's what the word boils down to, is a house, a family, and a land. So let's go to Genesis 1:1. And we're going to start with this very first verse. Okay. Now, I'm going to read it in the Hebrew, and you can read it in the English. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Okay. So, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. So, no, I'm not speaking in tongues. So you can tell we got Pentecostals in here. So yeah. So what's interesting, and we don't see it here in the English, but if you look at this written in Hebrew and on a Torah scroll, even at I think the Hamash also has it in there too, that very first letter is the bait. That first letter, and I have to look because I am not on the thing here, wrong hand. The very first letter, right there, the bait, is written enlarged, okay? And first, let's think for a minute. If we think about the Hebrew alphabet, the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Aleph. It's not the letter, bait. But the Torah begins with the letter bait, and there are many midrashes on why does the Torah choose to begin with this letter. It doesn't begin with the letter that represents God's name. It doesn't begin with the letter that starts his name. It doesn't begin with a shin, which stands for El Shaddai. So why would he choose to start with the second letter of the alphabet instead of his, one of those other ones, the first letter of his name?
Because one is the loneliest number.
One is the loneliest number. Oh my gosh. So, yeah.
On your game.
Yeah, he is on his game today. Well, when we look at this, there, like I said, there's many midrashes on why. But in Hebrew, we have to remember letters have sounds, a form, a meaning, a numerical value. And Terry, I agree with you when you said it's about his house, because what letter is representing his house? Okay. The bait. Or bait. Yeah, bait. Mm-hmm. So when we look at this, the bait here is written enlarged. Now, anytime you see an enlarged letter in Hebrew, it's going to, or a small letter, it's something important, because in Hebrew, you don't have capital and lowercase letters. Okay. So all letters are written, basically the same height. So when one is written larger or smaller, then Yah is pointing out, he's trying to get our attention in some way so that we can discern some other information. So, like I said, this begins with an enlarged bait. Okay. And then, Yah is going to teach us something about this bait, this house. And in ancient Paleo Hebrew, the letter bait is actually a picture of a house. It's actually the way it looks different than the letter that we have here on the screen. It looks like a tent. Okay. And so this is the letter that represents the house, but it's also the letter that means, in its form meaning, means house. And so from this very first letter of the first word in the Torah, Yah is trying to reveal to us that he's trying to build his house for himself. Okay.
Yeah, or build a garden.
Well, this is before the garden. Yeah, so this is before the garden. So the purpose of the universe was really to build a dwelling place for Yah to dwell or tabernacle.
If you think about it, we're the pupil of his eye. He's always got his eyes on us, but he has fixed our eyes on this earth. So we can see all of the earth, but we can see the heavens too.
Yeah, we should be looking to him. Yeah, it's about looking to him. So if we're thinking about why he didn't start with the first letter of the alphabet, this is where we get the word alphabet from, the Aleph bait. Okay, so the Aleph is the first letter, which the Aleph represents the master, him, okay, the creator. So then we've got here the Aleph bait. The Aleph, it's the purpose of creation is so that the Aleph can reside in a bait with man. The Aleph can reside in the bait with man. Okay. And we see this even when he gives them in Exodus 25:8, and he tells them to build for himself a sanctuary, a tabernacle. Okay. So that he can dwell among them. That was the whole purpose for it. And this is where we have to change the way we think, because when we sometimes think about building a house, we tend to think about the physical structure. But in the Hebraic mindset, when a man builds his house, he doesn't begin by building, with bricks or mortar or whatever. How you build your house is by your bride. Okay. And so here we see that there's this foreshadowing of a wedding that is going to eventually take place between his bride and him. It's a picture of that, like what happened at Mount Sinai with Exodus. So in that first letter, we've already got a revelation of Yah, and that his purpose was to dwell on earth among his creation, and that he was going to be a husband and take this bride from among his creatures. And all of that is just from that first letter. Okay. Now, something else interesting in Genesis 1:1. Reading it in Hebrew, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. There are 7 words here. Okay, 7 words in that verse. But in the word Bereshit, so I have to get my things straight here. The word Bereshit that I got on the screen, there are 6 letters in the word Bereshit. Okay, so we got the Beit, Resh, Ayin. I'm sorry, not Ayin. Aleph, Shin, Yud, Tav. Bereshit. Beit, Resh, Aleph, Shin, Yud, Tav. This word Bereshit, beginning, is not only pointing to the 6, but it's pointing to the 6 days of creation. And that we have 7 words in Genesis 1:1. But what's interesting in the 6, he's building a house. The whole purpose within the Bereshit is to build a house for him to dwell with man. And we've got 6 letters. And do you know what word the Hebrew word for 1,000 is? Aleph. Aleph. Yeah. For 1,000. So when we think about this, the Hebrew word for 1,000 is Aleph. And you've got 6 letters in the word Bereshit, and they're pointing to not only the 6 days of creation, but they are pointing to the Aleph, 1,000 times the 6 is 6,000. It's pointing to the 6,000 years of mankind within that first word. You see what I'm getting at? Mm-hmm. So think about the plan that's already being laid out just in this word. Yah's building this house. He wants to dwell with man. He's going to take a bride from man, and man's going to be given 6,000 years here. And it's all coming with this word. Okay. Now, like I said, that first verse has 7 words in it. Okay. 7 we know is the perfection of completion and, perfection here. 7's perfection and completion. But this also forms a menorah. And what's the most important part on a menorah?
The center.
The center one. Yeah, the shamash. Okay. Traditionally, it's the center one, depending on how your menorah is made, because sometimes they make them on the end now. But traditionally, the shamash is the 4th candlestick. It's the one that we're going to have all the stems are going to come from that one. Okay. So when you look at that word, that verse, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, the 4th word in Hebrew is et. Okay. In English, there is no word there. Bereshit is in the beginning. Bara, created. Elohim, God. Et.
Yeah.
Et.
E.T.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
So there is no word for et. It is intranslatable. Okay.
That's only in the Hebrew.
That's in the Hebrew. Yes. There's no translations for it. Okay. But that word et is written aleph taf. So let's go the beginning and the end. Yeah. So let's go. That's the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet and the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So let's go to Revelation chapter 1. In Revelation 1, and I want to go to verse 4. From Yochanan to the 7 Messianic communities in the province of Asia, grace and shalom to you from the one who was, who is, who was, and who is coming, from the sevenfold Spirit before his throne, and Yeshua the Messiah, the faithful witness, the firstborn of the dead, and the ruler of the earth's kings. To him, the one who loves us, who has freed us from our sins at the cost of his blood, who has caused us to be a kingdom, that is Kohanim for Elohim, his Father. To him be the glory and the rulership forever and ever. Amen. Look, he is coming with the clouds. Every eye will see him, including those who pierced him, and all the tribes of the land will mourn him. Yes, amen. I am, this version says, the A and Z. King James says the Alpha and Omega. But if you're writing in Hebrew, you're not going to say the Alpha and Omega because those are Greek letters. It's talking about the first Greek letter, the last Greek letter. You go to Hebrew. What's the first Hebrew letter and the last Hebrew letter? The Aleph and the Taf. So he says, I am the Aleph and Taf. Okay. So when we look at this et is the Aleph and Taf. And so when we think about what it's saying here, you've got, he's coming with the clouds. Who is this talking about? This coming with the clouds? Yeshua. And he says, I am the Aleph in the top. I am the et. Okay. So, and basically, if you're reading that verse in Revelation in Hebrew, he's going to say, Anihu Aleph Tav, or, I am a Nihu Et. I am the Et.
Is it always talking about Yeshua when the Aleph and the Tav?
No.
So
When you see it's not.
No, not always talking. Because
it's got to be Yah.
Right. There is, okay, and this comes up because I know there is a whole Bible on just the Et, that's translated. It doesn't mean that every time you see the word et, that it is talking about Yeshua. Okay. Because in Hebrew grammatically, the et is used as a sign that a direct object is usually following. Okay. So there are and it's usually, if that happens, it is connected to a word. But you have instances where we have what we call a standalone et. It's not connected to a word. And this is one. Okay. Does that make sense? Huh? It's awful lovely. Yeah. So it's standing alone. So Yeshua here is the et. And this is where we get the very Genesis 1:1. We're still in that verse. And we're looking at the fourth Hebrew word, which says,
But again, when somebody asks you who is the Aleph and the Tav, what do you say?
It's Yeshua here.
That's not what I'm saying. If somebody just asks you, who's the Aleph and the Tav? Is it Yah or is it Yeshua?
It's Yeshua.
Yeah. Well,
and when you look at what he's saying here in Genesis 1:1, it says, let me go back there. Genesis 1:1. Bereshit bara. Okay. Bereshit in the beginning, bara. Elohim created et. Okay.
yeah.
And then we've got the word hashemayim, they et ha'aretz. But that fourth word is the shamash. So the et is the shamash. So what does the shamash do? It lights all of the other candles on the menorah. It is to be the servant. So what is Yeshua? He is the servant, but he is the one who is to light all of the other candles. You are a light. You are a candle.
What's the Hebrew for water?
Mayim.
So why is Hashemayim heavens here?
That's okay, because
Water from heaven.
yeah, water. What? Because really, Shemayim, they believe that Shemayim, when waters, when you look at creation, the heaven, yeah, and that's a translation too, because a lot of people say, well, is it really the word heaven in English, or is it the word sky, or what? But yeah,
Yeah, because I knew when you said that, I knew like the Mayim was water.
Mayim is water, and it was, yeah,
Why is it saying that heaven?
because he separated the waters from the waters. Yeah. So
the earth, when he first made it, I thought was all water, and then he formed.
well, we're not even got to the earth yet. We haven't even got to
water though. If he formed the earth,
we haven't even gotten to the earth.
And
Yeah,
the
yeah.
earth.
Yeah, we're getting.
So did he do heavens only and then do the earth later?
Well, I don't know the order. I mean, it just says that he created the heavens and the earth.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Where he's separating, he did all the heavens first, and then he did the earth.
Yeah. So
Because it says Mayim, which means water, so
there's water above. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm assuming he created it separate and then brought it together, to form land there.
Well, yeah. Once we get to the formation of the earth, then we'll look at that. But yeah.
Which would be the Bayet home land.
Yes. Well, it's his people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to go back to the et. So et is the fourth word. Then we have the word Hashemayim, and then we have ve'et. Okay. Hashemayim is translated heavens, and then we have the word ve'et. That word is translated and, but that's not the word and. In Hebrew, the word and is va.
Yeah, because
It's not ve'et. It is just va. You add it to, like when you would say, I'm trying to think what I want to say here. Okay, cats and dogs. So we'd say hatulim ve kelim. So we would actually have just the ve, the va there added to it. It's not really ve'et. Okay.
So
It's not, you don't add that to it. You just put that letter to it. So that hopefully that makes sense. So we got ve'et. Ve'et is translated as and, but the va is actually the word and. So we've got that connected to the word et again. Okay. So vav is the connector. It's a hook. So not only is he creating the et, but we see the next word between heavens and earth. We've got vav, and we've got the word et. So we've got the et again that is connecting the heavens and the earth. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's used in the fourth, but it's also used on the sixth word. So when we look at that, this made me think about Genesis 28 and verse 12. Remember, Jacob goes and he is laying down and he puts his head on a rock and he has a dream. Genesis 28 and 12 says, he dreamed that there before him was a ladder resting on the ground with its top reaching into heaven, and the angels of Yah were going up and down on it. Okay, so wait a minute. We've got the heaven here, but the ground is the earth. So there was something connecting heaven and earth. And in Jacob's dream, it was this ladder, which in ladder in Hebrew is sulam, which is, okay, just to get off topic, but sulam is the same numerical value as Sinai, which is 130, but it's also the same value as moed, as the appointed times. So, this ladder is a picture of the appointed times, but it's also a picture of his word given at Mount Sinai. So, okay. But anyway, this ladder. So Yaakov's ladder is a picture of this word that is going up and down. Now, when we think about here, in Genesis 28:12, this ladder is resting on the ground with its top reaching into heaven. And we think about the word, the Torah. It wasn't written in a book like we have today. How did they write the Torah? I mean, I know Yah, when we look at how Yah wrote it on a stone, but how did they write it after that? On scrolls, which were made of what? Skins. Yeah, skins. And they were placed around two poles.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go to a synagogue or whatever, you'll see these big scrolls, 5 scrolls in the ark that they have. So the Torah scroll is actually a picture of a ladder. Your 2 spindles.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then every line of the words on the scroll is a line of a rung on a ladder. Okay. So if we think about this Torah is a picture of this ladder. We know the Torah, the word, is Yeshua. Yeshua is the ladder. He's the one that's connecting heaven and earth. And, if we think about, what's the importance here, Yah, the creator, has brought forth Yeshua. He's to be the one that's connecting heaven and earth. He's going to be the one that's interceding on our behalf. But what is also interesting about this verse in Hebrew 28 and verse 12, in Genesis 28:12, when it says that the angels of Yah were going up and down on it.
Yeah, that right there should, unless they were bringing the word, going up and getting the word, bringing it down to him.
Okay.
Why would they go from down to up?
Well, in Hebrew, it actually is saying that the Malachim of Elohim were ascending and descending bow.
Oh.
Bow.
Come.
Come, but that doesn't mean come there. Because
Wow.
bow can also mean on him.
So they were ascending and descending on him.
Okay.
What they were going up and
Now,
with that.
so look at this, because this is also, that doesn't mean literally that they're, Yeshua is standing there and that the angels are crawling up and down him. No, it's a metaphor. So when you think about what's happening, and this is interesting because you look at this, and most of us don't know a lot about the Talmud or the writings here in the Mishnah. But there is a midrash on this verse, and I will put the link in the notes. But on this, it says, this is from the essential Mabalim, the Parashah Vayetzi that's talking about this. This is the Parashah. I also do a little bit more in the teaching on Vayetzi on that too, and I can link. But it says that the angels of God were going up and down, not upon it. And this is coming from an Orthodox Jewish source.
Not upon
It, yes, because there is no it in Hebrew.
That's what they're saying.
In Hebrew, you don't have a neutral gender. Like in English, we've got he, she, it.
Yeah.
In Hebrew, you don't. Everything is male or female.
So it has to be.
So a table is either male, no, but what I'm saying, chairs, tables, they're all either male or female. Like,
People name their bows. It says either she or.
but what I'm saying, we don't have that in English, but in Spanish, words are either masculine or feminine. You don't have a neuter general. Okay. So this is coming from the rabbis, and it says, angels of God were going up and down, not upon it, but upon him. And they're even saying upon Yaakov himself. Yaakov, through his deeds, regulates the divine flow from above, and the angels go up and down on him, by him, and for him. He is the ladder. Now, also in the Genesis Rabbah, 68:12, and I'll put the link there too. And it talks about Rabbi Hiya, the elder, and Rabbi Yanai disagreed. One maintained that they were ascending and descending the ladder, while the other said they were ascending and descending on Jacob. And so they're even having a discussion between themselves that, wait a minute, this is not literally talking about a ladder. They're seeing it as a picture of a man. And so even from these, these two rabbinic sources, they're seeing this vision that Jacob is having of this ladder as being a picture of a man.
And not the ladder.
Right. So when we think about what's going on here, we've got a picture of Yeshua is the ladder. He's the ladder between heaven and earth. He is the ladder that is connecting heaven and earth. And Yaakov, saw that he had one end planted or established on the earth and the other end or the top reaching into heaven. Well, how is that possible? They're saying that Yeshua is divine. He is coming from the heaven, but yet he is going to be born a man, so he is going to be planted in the earth, which is what Scripture says.
So how is it going from down to up? If they think it was Yeshua, is he, because it says they were ascending and descending.
It's a metaphor. It's not literally that they're ascending and descending.
So it's just like Yeshua he's coming down and going back up, whatever.
No, they're not saying that he's coming down, but they're seeing this picture of, there's a gnat, sorry, is that the word is actually coming. Yeah, because what is he? He is the word.
Yeah. And
the angels I just recall. The angels are descending and ascending on his word.
On his word, yes.
Because he is always watching his word to perform it
exactly
within the earth.
Yes.
So
that's in Jeremiah. That's what it says in
so
Jeremiah.
that's what these angels are doing. They are coming back and forth to the earth,
right,
descending upon the words that Yah speaks to them about go forth and come back, and all once they perform their duties, they are going back
and forth. Yes,
receiving more words.
And you think about it, it's not. We sometimes read this as literal. Oh, we've got these angels that are going up and down. But if you look at John 1:51, and John 1:51, he says that. Then he said to him, yes, indeed, I tell you that you will see heaven opened and the angels of God going up and coming down on the Son of Man. So are they literally saying that Yeshua is going to be standing there and the angels are going to be going up and down on him? No.
It has to be the word.
But he is the word. Yeah. That's the whole point of.
And Yaakov or Jacob. Mm-hmm. The 12 tribes.
The word is going up and coming down and ascending.
Yes, the 12 tribes of the nation.
Because what was happening? Yeshua was given authority on this earth.
Yeah.
He was given the dominion over this earth. Mm-hmm. So,
but it's all connected because nowhere else has anyone in Scripture, as I know of, they ascended and descended like that.
Yeah.
And it was only on Jacob who was fixing to go.
Well, in his dream, he's on.
And so he, the 12 tribes,
Right. Well, and then too, but if you're taking it back, that this word, because you got to remember, a ladder looks like a Torah scroll.
Yeah.
What is Yeshua? Yeshua is the Torah. So this is all pointing to him being the Torah, but this is long before Yeshua was ever born.
Yeah. And also Jacob, he was the one that sat under the teaching before he left.
Right.
Him and Esau getting,
right.
doing that. And then, so, he was only getting the teaching. So this way, it's basically really God sending the word,
The word, yes, which is Yeshua.
Yeah.
Has Yeshua always been? Was he made by Yah, or what has he always been?
I think he was created.
I do too. personally do myself. But
Yeah, I think he was created because I think where it says right here at the beginning, Bereshit bara Elohim, Elohim et, that he created the et, that he created him at the very beginning, before the heavens and the earth were created.
Because he was that line.
Yeah.
That, way before the sun was
So,
ever created.
yeah,
He
yeah,
was
yeah.
alive.
But two, when you think about that, this is not only a picture of the word, and that the rabbis are saying, well, not only is this word, it's a picture of a man, that they themselves are saying, no, this word is a picture of the man. Well, if you think about a ladder, okay, think about a ladder, and you've got these rungs on the ladder.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is also a picture of? The DNA strand. Yeah. If you take a DNA strand, which we see it as a strand that's, but you lay it flat, it is actually a ladder.
yeah,
So this DNA structure is a picture of the ladder, which is also a picture of the man, because Torah is a man. The Torah is Yeshua. Okay. It is the word. The word is Yeshua. And the ladder, what is a Torah scroll? It is your life. It is the tree of life. Proverbs talks about it. It's a tree of life, and we should grab hold of it and take hold of it, because it's going to be life for us. And if you think about, if Yeshua is the Torah, then Yeshua is the tree of life, and he is the head of the assembly, the believers here. And if he is a picture of that Torah scroll, you think about the two sides and then those cross pieces there. And that, if you think about a Torah scroll, Torah scroll, when you read, open up a scroll and you're reading the lines, but then you have to roll the scroll over. Each one of those pages is called a leaf, like a tree. Okay, so it is actually, it is called, like these are leaves that you're getting on this tree that you're to be eating, which is the Torah.
And two, to me, as you've got that open, it connects Jacob at that point. He's seeing his future, really, because he knows where he's going.
And it's a sword, all coming back to the word.
It all comes back because he has the 12 tribes, and one which is Joseph.
Yes.
And then Joseph has those dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's all in the
pointing to the future. Yeah.
For him to go to Egypt, but he went a bad way of going, but he went to Egypt to do all this.
Yeah.
To connect him back to heaven again. I mean, the tribes and stuff,
Yep.
So it's all, yeah.
I'm sorry, Angelina, I just now saw your thing that she was talking about. The DNA looks like a ladder too. Life is in the blood. Yep.
Yeah.
And when you think about too that, okay, so Yaakov's ladder is a picture of a tree, which is a picture of Torah, which is a picture of the word of Yah, which is a picture of Yeshua, which is a picture of Yeshua on the tree at his crucifixion, which is then is a picture of eternal life, which is a picture of the way to the Father. It's a Torah, which is back to a Torah scroll. And you know what? The spindles on a Torah scroll are called Etzei trees of life.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the trees of life was for healing and revelation.
And the trees of life are for healing in the revelation. But how do you get that? You are to be eating the fruit of the tree. Well, when you think about you're to eating, was it saying the leaves of the tree? Well, what are the leaves? The word that's written on the scroll.
So it all works its way around back to creation.
Yes, it goes back to creation.
You started at creation, you went all the way, and you're coming back around, back to creation.
Back to creation.
The tree of
Yes.
life.
Okay. So this got me to our next part, because going back to Genesis 1:1, because this is where we are, Genesis 1:1. And you've already gotten a picture of Yeshua out of Genesis 1:1. Okay. So we go to, how did Yah create the heavens and the earth?
Okay.
He spoke it.
He breathed.
Okay. He spoke it. So in Hebrew, there are 22 Hebrew letters. So words are made up of letters. So we got 22 letters. And just as there is a menorah in this first verse, and there was a hidden meaning, if you take the 22 Hebrew letters and you start in alphabetical order in Hebrew, on a menorah, you got 7 branches.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got 7 branches, and you're going to put the letters on the menorah. So, I mean, like here, I've got the picture, right here of a menorah, and you're going to put letters on these branches. Okay. And if you do them in alphabetical order, you're going to end up having one that has more letters than the other.
Yeah.
Angelina said it's really the tree of life that Yeshua leads us to, and this is why the adversary tries so hard to keep us from the foundation of our faith. Amen.
Yes.
So, you take these letters and you put them on the menorah. So that's what I did. So I'm going to share a picture right now in just a second. But you're going to have one extra letter. Okay. So if you think about the menorah, which one is the most important one that would have the extra letter?
The middle.
The middle one, the shamash.
Yeah.
It's going to be the one that all the others stem from. So if you put the extra letter in alphabetical order on that one, this is what we have. Okay. So let me I'm going to share my notes here so that way you can see this picture. Let me go to my screen and then I'll turn it around for you guys in just a minute. Okay, let's share.
Remember what the extra letter is?
Yeah, I'm going to go through them in just a second. Let me pull up the picture here. Okay. Okay. So can you guys see it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So we've got the letters here. We got Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Het, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samet, Ayin, Hey, Zadi, Kuf, Resh, Shin, Tav. Okay. So I'm going to turn this around so that you guys can see the picture. So all I did was just take the letters and put them on the menorah.
Yeah.
So that you can see. Okay. So with that, the most important one is the center one. So we've got these letters here on the center one, which we know is a picture of Yeshua. So looking at this, we've got Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mem. That is a Hebrew word.
Yud what?
Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mem.
Okay.
Yuklam.
Yuklam.
Which means to humiliate. He will be humiliated.
That's the one that's on the shamash?
Yes. Okay. So the shamash, the servant light, the one that lights the others, will be humiliated.
And that's what
That's what, if you're doing the alphabet in order. Okay.
Yeah, okay. And it says
Yeah. But what is interesting is this. Watch this. If I read the letters from bottom to top, because from bottom to top, we've got Mem, Lamed, Kaf, Yud, which is also another Hebrew word. Malki. My king. You got it. So the servant light was going to be humiliated, but he's turning the world upside down, which he is my king. That is what is hidden here in the Hebrew on that. If you look at the menorah.
And that's reading from right to left.
Well, if you're going alphabetical order, 3 letters on each one.
Right.
Aleph, Bet, Gimel.
Okay.
Yep. And then you're doing, in order, 3, 3, 3, and then you get to the 4th one, you put 4.
Yeah.
So he will be humiliated, which is the servant was going to be humiliated. But if you read it in that reverse order, it is Malki, which is my king.
Can the rabbis have jury with the words?
Well, I mean, I don't know that they look at that. I don't know. I'm not sure, if they look at it.
I mean,
but,
there's a lot in Genesis that they read.
Yeah.
That we
They
read.
look at whatever.
There are a lot of times they're looking at what they've been taught by rabbis, just like a lot of what, a lot of pastors that are going to seminary, they're taught what they were taught, and that's
They
it.
were taught, they were taught.
Just like
Yeah, from
doctors.
Yes, like doctors, yeah.
Yeah.
So think about this. The plan from the beginning for Yeshua, from the foundation of everything, the Shamash, the servant, who is going to give light to others, would be the one that would be humiliated. And he's going to be the connector between heaven and earth. And he's going to be the one to flip the world upside down. And it's going to be our king. And all of that is from the beginning.
Just that few words.
Mm-hmm. Just from that.
Mhm.
Okay. So going back to this first word, Bereshit, we looking at it again, we've got Bereshit, but the ba at the beginning is actually a word in of itself because the ba is in or at. Okay. And the Reshit is the word for beginning. So Reshit is beginning. And what are some things that were there at the beginning? Okay. So Psalms 111, verse 10. Psalms 111, verse 10. The first and foremost point of wisdom is the fear of Yah. All those living by it gain good common sense. His praise stands forever. That's the way this version reads it, or this translation. Yeah. Okay. So it says from the first and foremost point is wisdom is the fear of Yah. Okay. If you're reading it in the Hebrew, it says Reshit Choma Yerad Yad. So the beginning. Okay. So this at the beginning, we have wisdom. Okay. So wisdom is at the beginning. We see in Proverbs 4 and 7, it says the beginning of wisdom then is to get wisdom. Okay. So, and then we also see that wisdom in Proverbs 8 is talking about to the Torah being wisdom. Okay. So wisdom is the beginning. Wisdom is Torah. We also have at the beginning, Jeremiah 2 and 3. Jeremiah 2 and 3 says, Israel set aside for Yah the first fruits of his harvest. All who devour him will incur guilt. Evil will befall them, says Yah. Okay. It says Israel is set aside for Yah. Okay. Israel is the Reshit. Israel is the Reshit. So also Israel is in the beginning. Okay. In 1 Corinthians 1 and 30, 1 Corinthians 1 and 30, we see that it says, it is his doing that you are united with the Messiah Yeshua. He has become wisdom for us from Elohim and righteousness and holiness and redemption as well. So we see that Yeshua is wisdom or Reshit. Okay. So in Judaism, Reshit at the beginning can be understood at 4 different levels. So things that were there at the beginning, they say was wisdom, Israel, Torah, and the Mashiach were all there at the beginning.
Say those 4 again.
Wisdom, Israel, Torah, and the Messiah. All at the beginning. Before creation really was made. Okay.
Yeah.
And that those 4 things are all the same things. They're just different levels within the same thing. Okay.
Doesn't it say in scripture that all things were created through
him? Yeah.
And without him, it
Yes,
was
all
not
things.
created. So, yeah.
That it was at the beginning.
Yeah.
So what's also interesting, and this is where I said we're getting into a lot of Hebrew here, but Yah reveals himself more if we even look at those four things, because numerical values, how he spoke things into existence, were by his word, and his words have letters, have numbers. So if we look at the word wisdom, okay, hukmah numerically is 73. The het is 8, kaf is 20, mem is 40, and hey is 5. Israel is 541. 73.
Okay.
Israel is 541, which is the Yud 10, Shin 300, Resh 200, Aleph 1, and Lamed 30. I don't know if you want the breakdowns, but but it's 541. Torah is 611. Torah, Tav is 400, Vav 6, Resh 200, Hey is 5. And Mashiach is 358. So the mem is 40, the shin is 300, the yud is 10, and the het is 8. So when you look at all four of those things, because all four of those things are at one level at the beginning, at Reshit. So wisdom, Israel, Torah, and Mashiach, when you look at the numerical value of all four of those, it ends up being 1,853. That really doesn't make a lot to us, but rabbis throughout years have gone through a Torah scroll and calculated the numerical value of every single verse. Okay. And there is a verse that has that same value of those four things together. Let's go to Psalms 82. Okay, Psalms 82. And I'm going to go down to verse 6. My decree is, you are Elohim, sons of the Most High, all of you. So the total value for all of those things that were at the beginning is the same value as this verse that says in Hebrew, Ani amarti Elohim atim b'nei elyon kulam, that you are all sons of the Most High, that you are Elohim, you are sons of the Most High. We are to be like him. We are to be sons of the Most High. So think about all of that was at the beginning. And not only is it a picture of Yeshua, but we are to be imitators of Yeshua. And it is the same value as this one verse.
So he's saying that Adam was a son of God.
The Adam
was the son of God, but not the son of God.
Right. He was to be like your picture of that person. You are to be representing that person.
Adam also was the one to bring creation into the.
Mm-hmm. So not only do we have that, but another way of looking at numerical values is not only the value of each letter, but what we call the ordinal numerical value, the ordinal value, I guess you say it, because what letter it is in the alphabet. So if you look at those same words, wisdom, instead of being 73 is now, if you look at the letters, the numbers they are in the alphabet, het is 8, kaf is 11, mem is 12, hey is the 5th. So its value by the ordinal is 37. Israel's value by the ordinal is 64. Torah's value by the ordinal is 53. And Mashiach's value by the ordinal is 52. Okay. So I know this is just a whole bunch of numbers, but when you look at those four things and you look at the numerical value by their ordinal numbers, it comes up to be 206, which to me stands out as something important because 206 is the value of the word davar, word. So no matter which way you look at those things that existed at the beginning, it is a picture of, we are to be pictures of Elohim, and we are called sons of God, or he is the word. It is, but all of that is hidden within those four things that existed at the beginning in Bereshit. See what I'm saying? Okay. Y'all with me? Okay.
In other words, reflections of the Father.
We're to be reflections of the Father. Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, we are to be reflections of the Father. Okay, I know there's a lot of information here, so
That's
okay.
okay.
Okay. So we're going to look at this word Bereshit. And again, how it's spelled, I've got it here on the screen for you. You've got the first part, the first two letters. Okay, I'm trying to point and it's hard. The first two letters here, the Beit Resh, and the last two letters. Oh, I can't go over here. The last two letters. Okay, the outside letters, Yud Tav. So in the word Bereshit, just like in people, you have parents. There's a parent root. The parents are the outsides. Okay. So when you look at this word, we got the outside letters as the Beit, the Resh, and the Yud and the Tav. Those outside letters spell the word Beit, Resh, Yud, Tav, Brit. Brit is the word for covenant. Okay, so the purpose of his creation was to build a house so that he could have covenant with them. Okay, but the inside letters that's left is the Aleph and the Shin, which is the word Esh, which is fire. So Yah is making a covenant of fire with them. Does that strike anybody?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think of anything when I say a covenant of fire?
And that's what he did during Abraham's thing.
Exactly. Yeah, let's go there. Genesis 15:17. Genesis 15:17. With Abraham, and this is in the Lech Lecha. When Yah's making a covenant with Abraham, after the sun had set, there was a thick darkness and a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch appeared, which passed between the animal parts. Okay. So this flaming torch that is passing between the animal parts when you make or cut a covenant, there would be one, usually two of you to stand in between and to make this covenant. But there's no person here standing in there. We see a flaming torch. In Hebrew, or it is using the word a lapid esh. Lapid esh is the phrase here. A burning lamp, a flaming torch, whatever. That's passing between the pieces. So what is this lapid esh?
Yeshua.
It's Yeshua. Okay. And Angelina said it also reminds her at the end of Deuteronomy where it talks about the law of fire. Yeah, because the word is fire. I know there is a midrash that says that when Yah gave them the Torah, that the tongues of fire came out and carved the letters on there, or not what the tongues or whatever with his finger that carved the letters into the stone. So
Yeah, because if his finger didn't really touch it, it was the flame that burned it in there or something.
Right, that burn it there.
Mm.
Okay, so I want to look at this because there's another place that talks about a Lapidesh. Okay, let's go to Daniel chapter 10 and verse 5. Daniel chapter 10 and verse 5. Okay, when I looked up, and there before me was a man dressed in linen, wearing a belt made of fine Uphaz gold. His body was like beryl, his face looked like lightning, and his eyes were flaming torches, a lapidesh. And his arms and feet were the color of burnished bronze. And when he spoke, it sounded like a roar of a crowd. So here we've got a picture of a messenger of Yah. And his eyes are called a lapidesh. And if you look at how this messenger is being referred, skip down to verse 11. It says, and he said to me, Daniel, you are a greatly loved man. Now pay attention to the words that I'm saying to you and stand upright. For it is to you that I have been sent now. And after he said this to me, I stood up trembling. And then he said to me, don't be afraid, Daniel, because since the first day you determined to understand and to humble yourselves before Elohim, your words have been heard. And I've come because of what you said. The prince of the kingdom of Persia prevented me from coming for 21 days. But Michael, one of the chief princes, okay, the archangel, came to assist me so that I was no longer needed there with the kings of Persia. So here we see this messenger in verse 11 is being sent, but the angel Michael came to assist this messenger. So that means that this messenger is not Michael. Mm-hmm. And that this messenger, notice back in verse 5, how was he dressed? In linen. Well, wait a minute. Triggering your brain. Priest wear linen garments. Okay. And if we go over to the book of Revelation, chapter 1, we've got another picture here in Revelation 1. I'm going to go down to verse 12. And it says, I turned around to see who was speaking to me. And when I had turned, I saw 7 gold menorahs. And among the menorahs was someone like the Son of Man, wearing a robe down to his feet and a gold band around his chest. And his hair and his eyes were white as snow white. And his eyes were like a fiery flame. So again, this passage is talking about Yeshua. He is dressed in this robe, like probably linen here, and he is referred to as being his eyes like a fiery flame, like a lapid esh, and he was the one that was sent from the heavens with a message for us. So this lapid esh, this flaming torch, reminded me of if you go to a synagogue today, there is something in the synagogue that is a light that is hanging above the ark. Okay. It is called a ner tamid. Okay. And, if you go to a regular synagogue, I don't know, Messianic synagogues usually don't have them unless they've got like an ark or something, but they have a ner tamid. And a ner tamid was actually, it means an everlasting light.
The one was like that.
It had a light above it. Yeah. And it never goes out. It is done with, it's always on. So it is run by battery or solar or whatever. So it's, yeah. So the ner tamid in the temple was actually the westernmost lamp on the menorah. And the wicks were actually changed daily and prepared in the morning. All except for the westernmost lamp, because they would leave that one lit. They would take out the others. They would change them, and they remained unlit throughout the day. But that one light never would go out. And the westernmost lamp was the one that was called the ner tamid, because it would burn continuously. Even though we don't have a temple today, like I said, the one, if you go into a synagogue, you will see that they will have a ner tamid up there as a memorial hanging above that ark. And so that made me think about that when you think about that lapid esh, that torch that made that covenant with them, that they're, recognizing that there was a covenant made between God and man, and that light is to never go out, that it is to be always in us. Okay. So Going back to Genesis, chapter 1, verse 3. Then Elohim said, let there be light, and there was light. And Elohim saw that the light was good, and that Elohim divided the light from the darkness. Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So there was evening and morning, and that was one day. So again, we look at this, and we've got this light that existed in the beginning, wasn't coming from the sun or moon. Because if we go down to verse 14, this is where we get the sun and the moon and the stars. In verse 14, Elohim said, let there be lights in the dome of the sky to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, seasons, days, and years, and let them be for the lights in the dome of the sky to give light to the earth. And that's how it was. Elohim made two great lights, the larger to rule the day and the smaller to rule the night, and the stars, and he put them in the dome of the sky to give light to the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. So there was evening and there was morning and the fourth day. So what was that light at the beginning?
Right? Yeshua.
It had to be Yeshua. Yeah. And even in John 8 and 12, what does Yeshua say? I'm the light of the world. So, this here before when it's really, he's the light of the whole cosmos, the whole universe, before there was ever the sun and the moon, because we don't have that until the fourth day. So there was a light that existed there at the beginning. Now, going back to Genesis 1 and verse 5, it says, so there was evening and there was morning. That was one day.
And he said he was the light of the world. That meant the whole earth.
The whole earth. Yeah. Well, not only the earth, but the whole universe.
He was telling them, I was created before the sun.
I was created before the sun and the moon.
The sun and the moon.
Yep.
So he said, I'm the light.
Yep. And Angelia said, the Torah is the light. Yeshua is the light. Yeshua is the Lord of the Sabbath. His sheep hear his voice and follow him, the light of the world. The Sabbath was 7 days. From that day, one light. You got it. And what also stuck out with me here is that when you look at verse 5, it says this is one day. And the days of the week in Hebrew are not Sunday, Monday, whatever. Those are, we know from pagan gods' names, okay? But when you say it in Hebrew, you have Yom Rishon, Yom Shani, Yom Shlishi, Yom Revi, Yom Hamashi, Yom Shishi, and then Shabbat, okay? So you've got actually it's first day, second day, it's day, okay. But when you look at the other days of creation, it says Yom Shani, Yom Shlishi, Yom, second day, third day, fourth day. But that's not what it says here in verse 5. In the Hebrew, it does not say Yom Rishon, first day. It says Yom Echad.
Yom Echad.
Yes. It says Yom Echad, which is one day or day one. Now, we think of literal time here, but that is a Hebrew idiom for Yom Kippur.
Really?
Uh-huh. So think about what Yom Kippur is. The restoration of all things and the ransom for the nation. And you think about what happened here on day one. He is the light. He is the light of the world. And here's a picture of this idiom that is pointing to Yom Kippur at the very beginning, before the whole world was created, before the foundation of the world. And the nation.
Yes.
The Day of Atonement. Yes. Yep. In Matthew 20 and verse 28, it says, for the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. He's going to be the Shamash. And to do what? to give his life as a ransom for many. What happened if you were guilty of a crime, of murder?
You were put to death.
Manslaughter. Okay, you were put to death. But what if it was manslaughter, accidental death?
You were sent to a city.
You had to go to the Levitical city. How long did you stay there?
Until the priest died.
Until the priest died.
Yeah, so
And he was the ransom for your soul.
He was the priest. He was.
So if you think about what Yeshua did, we basically, in essence, are guilty of putting our sins upon him, of manslaughter, of killing him, in essence. Okay.
Mhm.
And so we run to the Levitical city
Yeah.
and hide. And it is only through the death of the high priest that you were ransomed and you could be returned and restored. And think about what this is. This is pointing to him, like Angelina said, being slain from the foundation of the world. We ain't even got the world, created. Here, day one, we've got him, a picture of him already being slain and having to be that atonement.
Because it was already beginning that he had to do that. I mean, he was the only one that could do it because he was.
so he tells the end from the beginning.
He tells the end from the beginning.
The priest died.
Yes.
He was the priest, and it couldn't be done until the high priest.
Right. And Angelina said that's the gospel message right there. Yeah. And if you think about, I've been reading in the gospels recently because I'm reading the Bible in order. And I'm up to the gospels, and I'm just struck where, Yeshua constantly is telling the disciples to go out and preach the kingdom. And I think I mentioned this last week. Well, what is the kingdom? We're taught that the kingdom is the death, burial, and resurrection of Yeshua. But he's telling the disciples before he died to go out and preach the kingdom. He ain't died yet. They don't know that he's going to die. So what are they preaching? What was the gospel that they were preaching there? It wasn't necessarily the death, burial, and resurrection, even though he knew that was going to happen. They didn't know that that was going to happen. He's preaching about the kingdom of God and how to live a righteous life so that you have that eternal life.
Yeah, because it was to come.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so even from the very first day, we have a picture of Yeshua being a ransom on Yom Kippur, and Yeshua, like Yah, is in that, I don't know how to do it without sci-fi. I think of like he's outside of eternity. He's outside of time in eternity. That is, there's no that time constraint there. And I've used this image before. I'm trying to take this. Like if you take a piece of paper, like here, like we've got time, and I just think of it this way. Fold it up, But and I wanted to go through, and here is Yeshua outside of time, and we've got the past, present, and future. And I actually put a dot through it. Well, wait a minute. Yeshua was in all of this.
Yeah.
Because he's outside of time, that he can be in all of this. So I know that's just a way for me at all points. He's in it. So, and that's, from the beginning.
Distinction.
Yeah, it's like, that's why I think about it. But when we also think about what his purpose was his purpose would be when Yah's house, his children, sin or fall, that he would build it back up again. Amos 8:11. Remember, this is why we named the ministry when we first started, Beit David, is because I'm not 8:11. I'm 9:11. 9:11 says, when that day comes, I will raise up the fallen sukkah of David, and I will close up its gap and raise its ruins and rebuild it as it used to be. And so that, that's what he was doing there, his purpose. So, okay. We okay? Processing?
Yeah, I'm processing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, online?
Yeah,
Hey, sister.
we good.
Hey,
I didn't
Sorry
hear
we
you.
were late.
Oh,
We're
you're-
traveling,
I know. It's okay.
you know.
Yes. Kid Sandra. So, okay. So let's skip on over to Genesis 1, verse 26, because like I said, I'm just trying to really focus a lot on just Yeshua in this. So Leviticus, not Leviticus. I'm skipping books. I'm skipping books. We're going to, no, we're, Genesis 1:26.
Cause it's been going around
Yeah.
the other way.
Okay, Genesis 1:26. And then Elohim said, let us make humankind in our image and the likeness of ourselves and let them rule over the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, the animals, and over all the earth, and over every crawling creature that crawls on the earth. So Elohim created humankind in his own image. The image of Elohim, he created them, male and female, he created them. Elohim blessed them, and he said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, and every living creature that crawls on the earth. And then Elohim said, here throughout the whole earth, I'm giving you as food every seed-bearing plant and every tree with seed-bearing fruit, and to every wild bird, or every animal, bird in the air, creature, crawling thing on the earth, which is there is a living soul, I'm giving to you as food, every kind of plant. And that is how it was. And Elohim saw that he made, and indeed it was very good. So there was evening and there was morning, a sixth day. Okay. So man was created on the sixth day. And the word for man and humankind is the same word. It's Adam. Okay. And so Adam was created in Yah's image. And he was made male and female. And the word for male here, there are multiple words for man. There are multiple words that are used for male. Okay. So just FYI, for man, you've got like Adam, you've got Ish, you've got Enosh. So there's different words for man. Gibor is also man. So, male here is Zakar and female Nakava. And so Adam was made male and female here. Now, skip over to chapter 2. It starts with the seventh day, but then it remembers back to the creation of man. In 2 and 7, it says, then Yah Elohim formed a person from the dust. So it's remembering back and telling you what happened on that sixth day, giving you more details. And breathed into his nostrils the breath of life so that he became a living being. Yah Elohim planted a garden toward the east in Eden, and there he put the person whom he had formed. So again, man and animals on the sixth day. And we see down in verse 15.
Translation?
I'm sorry?
What translation is that?
That I'm reading from is
No.
the complete.
Yes.
The complete
Okay,
Jewish.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I usually just say Elohim instead of whatever. In verse 15, and Yah Elohim took the person and put him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and care for it. And Yah Elohim gave the person this order: you may eat freely from every tree in the garden except the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You are to not eat from it, because on the day you eat from it, it will become certain that you will die. And Yah Elohim said, it isn't good that a person should be alone. I will make for him a companion suitable for him. And from the ground, Yah Elohim formed every wild animal, every bird that flies in the air, and he brought them to the person to see what he would call them. Whatever the person would call each living creature was to be their name. So the person gave names to all the livestock, the birds in the air, and every wild animal. But Adam, there was not a companion suitable for helping him. So
Dadgum, he didn't even recognize a dog.
no. Hey, if you want to, no, that's not me. But you think about it, he named all of the animals here, okay? And so Yah brought the animals before Adam to name. And this all happened prior to Eve, Havah, being taken from Adam. Okay.
Yeah.
How long was this?
Don't know.
We don't know. It doesn't really tell us. It could be days, it could be weeks, it could be years. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we do see in verse 21 that Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall upon the person, and while he was sleeping, he took one of his ribs. It's not really rib, okay.
And it had to be some time for him to name the animals and to God said he needed help.
And helpmate, yeah.
Adam, so it had to be a while.
It had to be sometime, yeah.
Yeah.
And he took one of the ribs, not really a rib, okay, and closed up the space, which he took it with flesh, and the rib, which Elohim had taken from the person, he made a woman person, and he brought her to the man person, and the man person said, at last, this is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She is to be called woman because she was taken out of the man. This is why a man is to leave his father and mother and stick with his wife, and they are to be one flesh. They were both naked, the man and the wife, and they were not ashamed. So, it doesn't say she was created. It says she was made, she was taken. Yeah. And we know this happened sometime after the creation week, but she was already there with Adam during the creation week. Okay. And that we see that Yah caused the deep sleep to fall upon Adam. And it says, Yah took a rib, actually the word that is, take there is lakak, which is to take in marriage. Or to take hold of, and then it says in verse 21 that Yah closed up his flesh. And so where this cut had to be made, there was a wound. There was a wound there. And Yah's going to close up. So think about this is a picture. A remnant was taken from the man's side, just as Yeshua on the tree was wounded in his side, and a remnant came forth from his side. Just like, Yeshua is a picture of the second Adam.
Yeah.
And just as Adam had to fall asleep for that remnant to come forth, Yeshua fell asleep, death, so to speak, in order and was pierced, and so that will come forth from that. And in John 19:34, it's where it says, however, one of the soldiers stabbed his side with a spear. And at once blood and water flowed out. And I also wanted to read in Zechariah 12:10, where it talks about, I will pour on the house of David and on those living in Jerusalem a spirit of grace and prayer. And they will look to me, whom they pierced, and they will mourn him as one mourns for his only son. They will be in bitterness on his behalf, like the bitterness of his firstborn son. So think about it. If there was a wound there was a cutting. A cutting, like a Brit, a covenant is cut. So when he was sacrificed, there was a cutting made there, and woman was taken out of man, just as the bride came forth from Yeshua.
Verse 23, and it said, it says, the man person said, at last, this is bone from my bones and flesh from my flesh. So could the cutting, we talked about this before, not be a bone, but it had flesh too. He said some flesh in my flesh, but the DNA where he was cutting took the blood and
part of it. Yeah. Whether it's part of
it. Ain't someone got one more bone than a man in the
I think that's a myth. I think that's a myth. Yeah. I think that's a myth. I think they have I think all that's, but I don't really know for a fact. I have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure that's a myth. But yeah, that word bone, etzim.
And it says bones in mine. Well, different translations say bone.
But when you think about that word etzim, and etzim is for bone, but that's also coming from the root etz, which is tree.
Yeah.
And so basically she is part of his tree. She's taken out of his tree. So when you think about that, if she is coming from that tree, she is part of him. They are one. Your husband and wife, you should be in unity. You should be one. You are one tree. If you think about Ezekiel 37, what's he trying to get us back to? Even though we are the house of Yehuda and the house of Ephraim or Israel, we are to be one tree again in his hand. And it, it's going back to that, bone of bone. And that's just like I've mentioned this before, that in Israel, it's really neat that their Independence Day, Israel's Independence Day, is not called independence in English. I mean, in English, we call it independence, but in Hebrew, they don't use the word for independence for their day. Their day for Independence Day is called Yom Ha'atzmaut, the Day of the Bones. Because what happened in Ezekiel 37, the dry bones coming back to life. So their Independence Day, they're recognizing that this is a day that Yah is bringing those bones together again. And then two, the word, flesh is basar. And so it's not only that she is to be flesh of my flesh. I don't literally maybe think that it's, flesh of flesh. I think this is a picture of two. What is the word for the good news in scripture? Basara. That if she is to be saying the same that her husband is saying, what are we to be doing? We should be the tree like him, and we should be saying the same thing that his word says, that we should be saying that good news, that's what the good news is.
And personally for me, since from the beginning, God said, and Adam, I mean, he created them, male and female.
Mm-hmm.
So she was already in him. And I think it had to do with the blood, the DNA.
Well, they were probably all, because it was all unified. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then God just, did the slit, took some blood out and then created her.
From that. Yeah.
Because,
yeah.
I mean, Adam was from the dust of the ground.
Right.
He has every element of the earth that if you
think about,
the real good dirt out there,
right.
Every element is what he's
using to create man.
Our
Yeah.
DNA.
No difference. 24 ribs, both man and female.
Thank you, Terry. He looked it up. Yep. So that was a myth that they have more than one rib than we do.
Usually it was a myth often linked to a biblical story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that is true.
My doctor got that, and he said, "Now you might have one more rib."
Well, and then too, a lot of people look at like Genesis 1:27. So Elohim created humankind in his own image. The image of Elohim, he created the male and female.
So I'm thinking, that. It's not bone, because you have a lot of people. Well, you come back. I have one less, but I know you don't. It's your DNA. It's just.
And two, I think about, when Adam and Eve were created here, or in his image, and she was taken out of him, then that means he has something that's missing that she has, and she has something that he's missing.
Right.
So are we going to look at things exactly the same way?
No.
No. And
look,
men and women look at,
anybody now, they have to use the DNA.
Yeah. And so,
I mean, it's
well, and you think about how we look at things differently. I mean, just from the, a lot of people today are, men, woman, a man's a woman, that kind of thing, And in our culture, we tend to think, well, if one person is right, then the other is wrong. That's the way we try to think of it. If one person is right, then the other one is wrong. But that doesn't necessarily mean it. That's true. That's the way we want to put things in boxes, because it's, two people, a male and a female, can both be looking at the same situation, but they see it from a different perspective. She may be looking at the emotional aspect of it, and he's looking at the physical aspect of it.
As long as Lisa agrees with you.
That's usually the case. Yeah. But, and I think, it comes back to, well, what's the image that he's created, when we think about whose image he's talking about, and our image, is it, is he talking about him and the angels, the divine council, whatever? And, this is something that struck me this time that I made a note. I actually stuck it on my computer here. That a lot of people I know, and I was guilty of this too. At first, when coming into the roots, looking at the word Elohim and saying, oh, well, Elohim's got the I am ending, it's plural, so this is plural. And then, so therefore it's justifying, the whole, not necessarily, I believe, Trinity, but that there was, that Yeshua was God and that, Yah is God and then the Holy Spirit. Okay. So, and a lot of people do that, but then it just hit me this time when I was looking at this, I'm like, well, wait a minute. I am, yes, means things are plural. But in Hebrew, subjects and verbs have to agree. Just like in English, when you're teaching little kids, that's why you don't say I is, or whatever. You got your subject and verb that want to agree. And it's the same thing here. Well, if you look at that word, Elohim, bara, if Elohim is plural, then bara has to be plural. And it is not. It is singular.
So it's sometimes it's plural, sometimes it's not.
Right. Yeah. And so it's just like, some words, if we think about, and I got to think about it this way too, is Elohim is a word that ends in an I am. We have words that end in S that aren't plural words.
Yeah.
Like the word boss. Boss. Yes. Is that a plural? No. Just because it ends in an I am doesn't mean always that it's a plural word. Most of the time it does, but there are certain words that's not. Like for the word mayim, water. Water ends in I am.
Yeah.
And it's always written that way.
Well, water is mass amounts of molecules.
Right. But when you talk about more than one, you don't say mayim. You would say mayot. You're actually going to change the ending there and make it different. So
It
doesn't communicate. Because if it's plural in and of itself, then it would still say mayim. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
But it doesn't. If you're talking about more than one, then you're actually going to change the ending. So, and that's just something that stuck out to me this time is that, that argument that, oh, well, he's multiple. Because clearly in Deuteronomy 6:1 says he's one. But I think where it's talking about Elohim, if you're looking at it being multiple, it's talking about his character. His traits are multiple. It's not that he's just got one. He's got a multitude of traits of loving kindness and mercy and compassion. And that is
the well. The living water. If you drank of me, you would thirst.
Yeah, Yeshua did say
that would be
How would she drink of him?
Yeah, that's a metaphor. Yeah, it's like
But not singer. He's everything.
Yeah, he's.
If she drank of him or lived for him,
right?
The living water in her would. And he would be her, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He would be the living water coming.
He would be the living water coming out of her. Okay. And Angelia said, and the word was with God. Yes. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing some research on that. I'm not going to touch that one yet, Angelina, because I'm still not to the point of saying that. But, I was listening to something and I've been looking up that word was God. And is it really supposed to be translated that way or not? So that's the whole question. So I'm not going to get into that yet. So that's still a work in progress.
Okay.
Traffic circle. Take the second exit and stay on South Carolina 123.
Somebody driving. That's Ken and Sandy driving. So they're getting directions. Yeah. You need to turn or stay on that road, right? So
Yeah.
what were you going to say?
No, I just said yeah and giggled. You said we need to stay on that road.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Mama?
Oh, sorry.
You're fine. Good.
Adam was basically, now I believe, and I've been looking at some different teachings of people and stuff, and I come to the conclusion he was created outside of the garden
and placed in. Yeah, it says he placed.
He was guarded and to keep the animals,
right,
everything going and all this, and so
right,
and that's why later he was kicked out because
Right.
He
Yeah.
had to-
I think.
Become part of the earth again, outside.
Well, and he, because the sin, it couldn't go into, and if that's a picture of the temple, then, that presence being outside of
And that's why I think he was created outside and then
placed in. Yeah.
Yahweh brought it inside of the garden.
Okay. Okay. So where he also says in verse 28, Elohim said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. So, rule over the fish, the sea, the birds in the air, every living creature that crawls on the earth. So we're commanded to be fruitful and to produce. And to procreate. When they were separated, they were called Ish and Isha. Okay. So Ish for man, like I said, man, is also called Adam. It's also called Enosh. It's also called Gever. So it just depends on, there's different words for man. But here we've got Ish and Isha. And Ish is written Aleph Yod Shin. Aleph Yod Shin is Ish for man. For woman, it is Aleph Shin Hey. Aleph Shin Hey. And if you look at the difference between the two words, between man and woman, the difference is man has the letter Yod and the woman has the letter Hey. Yod Hey, which is Yah. So those two letters spell Yah, the shortened, of Yod Hey Vav Hey. Okay. And so the other two letters that are the same in man and woman is the word Aleph and Shin, which is the word fire, Esh. So, and you look at those two, those other two letters are Esh, which means fire. So when man, Ish, and woman come together with Yah in life, then there is a fire, but it's not a consuming fire, for the letters are separated. But if you remove Yah from them, then you're left with that consuming fire in your marriage. And you think about how many times people, man and woman, get together and they don't have Yah in their lives. And what is their marriage like? It's, a lot of times it's chaos. It's, something that's, it's always going on. Yeah. But when they're coming together with Yah, he is that fire that's not consuming. Their fire is still there, but it's not consuming. So
is that not, wasn't that the word or whatever that was a covenant?
A part of the covenant. Yeah. Brit Esh, a covenant of fire. Yeah. That's the same word, Esh.
Come together as a
covenant is exactly. When they come together, it's a covenant.
With Yah.
Mm-hmm. With Yah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's why it says whatever Yah puts
together,
nobody puts the sun.
Yeah.
But Yah didn't put everybody.
But Yah doesn't put everybody. Now, two, we think about physically, a man and woman coming together to produce a sperm and an egg coming together. Well, that egg, is going to have 22 chromosomes from each parent. Okay. And there are 22 Hebrew letters. Yeah. Okay. So each parent is not called man and woman. You call them father and mother. Okay. Av and Im or Ima. Okay. So she's going in. So when you think,
You're not going to start that. What's your pronoun for it?
No, I'm not starting pronouns. Yeah, what's your pronoun? No. But I'm thinking about father is Av. Av is Aleph Bet.
Yeah.
Numerically, it's 1 and 2 with 3. So the word for father is 3. Okay. Im or Ima, so is actually Ayin Mem. Ayin 1, Mem is 40. So the word for mother is 41. Okay, so looking at those values, father is 3, mother is 41. So when they come together, the total is 44, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How many chromosomes does a child have? 22 from
44.
each parent. 44. But 44 is also the word Yud, Lamed, Dalet. Yud is 10, Lamed is 30, Dalet is 4, which is the word for child. Because when a father and mother come together, they produce a child. Okay. Now, it takes 22 chromosomes from each parent to create that child. So 22 times 2 is 44. Same value as the word for child. But 44 is also the value of the word dalet mem. Dalet is 4. Mem is 40. Dalet mem is the Hebrew word for dam, which is blood. Okay, so think about it.
Yeah.
When the father and mother come together,
What Mike was talking about.
when that father and mother come together, they have this child. That child is 44, but 44 is also the number of dam, which is blood. It is also the numerical, oh, sorry, my nose is itching. It's also in 44 chromosomes. And when you think about here that 44 is also the value of the phrase El Echad, which is one God. The child, the product of the bride and the groom, is the same value as one God. Parents can have a child, but it's God who breathes the breath or the ruach into that child to give them life. Even though, you think about, we have a physical body and we've got blood, okay? But without God, are we a living being? You can have parents who
He has to breathe the breath of
he
life
has to breathe the breath of life in them. Yeah, because a dead man has a body and he has blood. You can have a stillborn birth. It's got a body and it's got blood, but it doesn't have that nephesh. That's not a living nephesh. And in Leviticus 17:11, it says, "For the life of the creature is in the blood, and I have given it to you on the altar, make atonement for yourselves, for it's the blood that makes atonement because of the life." And so when we think about, he is giving that to, for them for life. He's giving them that ruach. And that when we think about God, El Echad, both begin with the letter Aleph, and Aleph represents God, which is the numerical value of 1. So when you add God to the blood, that word Dam, when you add God to it, the L to it, El, the Aleph, and Dam, Dalet Mem, we have Aleph, Dalet Mem, which is Adam. So when he was formed, it took that breath in order for him to have. And the word Adam is numerically 45 then. So
it doesn't matter. It has to be the breath of life that God gives you, because you can get down and the last pint of blood and be given blood and still live. But if that breath is took away from you, you're gone.
Right. Yeah.
But it's true that Yah only created Adam and Eve, correct?
I don't know.
He's trying to get you with something.
I know.
I mean,
You're talking about other people?
yes.
I don't know. It doesn't say that, but I don't know.
Yah created Adam and Eve, but Adam and Eve created.
Yeah. I mean, I know that some people think that y'all created others after that, but I tend to hold to the creation week only being that creation week and it not being additional.
And God does,
but I don't know.
God does not think on our time zone what we do. So it could be a year Adam and Eve had children, their children had
okay. Well, and I'm going to get to that. Okay, wait a second. Let's go.
What I'm trying to say though, is that God created Adam and Eve in his own image.
Right.
But remember Adam and Eve.
That's where I'm going to next. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's where I was going to. Yeah. Yeah. So.
But here's the
Okay, so let's go. That's where you were going. Let's go to Genesis chapter 5. So I tend to think, and I don't know about y'all, but I tend to think that Adam and Eve were created as an adult. They weren't created as children and that we had to wait on them to grow up. That's the way I look at it. I think that they were created as an adult.
They had teeth.
And that, so they had teeth.
Teeth.
Okay. Okay, Eddie. So Adam would start his first year as an adult.
Eddie.
Yeah, and he wouldn't have to wait, 18 years or whatever. Okay.
Amen.
So Genesis 5 and verse 1, the genealogy of Adam. On the day that Elohim created man, he made him in the likeness of Elohim. He created them male and female. He blessed them and he called them Adam, or human, or on the day on the day they were created. After Adam lived 130 years, he fathered a son like himself, named Seth. And after Seth was born, Adam lived another 800 years and had both sons and daughters. In all, Adam lived 930 years and then he died. Well, we don't tend to think about the passage of time. Now, I don't know how long Adam and Eve were together before Cain and Abel were born, but we do know that it was 130 years before Seth was born.
Yeah.
So think about that.
3 kids in 130 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, so how long were they together before having a child? I don't know. Because he called them to be fruitful. They had to get to know each other. There's a whole ton of people there, so I don't know.
A lot of effort trying to keep the garden clean.
A lot of effort keeping the garden clean. A lot of work being done. Yep. So before Adam dies,
930 years later.
Yeah, 930 years later, he lives to see his 5 great grandsons. Okay, so great grandson. Okay, so when Lamech is 56 years old, is when Adam dies. Remember, Lamech is Noah's father.
Mm-hmm.
So when Noah's father is 56, is when Adam finally dies. And so when you look at this, at this point, all of Lamech's ancestors are still alive.
Yeah.
So by the time we get to the end of this parashah, the time that has passed from Genesis 1 up through Genesis 6 is about 1,755 years. We don't think about it like that, but from those chapters, it's been 1,755 years if you go back through and start adding up all their ages and things. So if you think about our time period, from the time of Yeshua's birth until almost the independence of America, that's how much time it's been.
That's a lot.
Do you think about it? Yeah. So think about it. From the time Yeshua was born until the founding of America has been almost about the same amount of time.
I underline, I've always questioned this.
Mm-hmm.
Where you was reading, about the generations
Mm-hmm.
of Adam. When you get down to verse 24,
Mm-hmm.
Enoch walked with God, and then he wasn't there because God took him.
Mm-hmm.
And I got him. What was it about this man that God chose to take him? He was the first man that ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Enoch.
Yeah.
Enoch.
Yeah.
So what was it about him?
I don't know. You don't really know. I mean, you probably in other extra biblical sources, they may give other details, but
I've had that on the line for years and years and years.
And then what does it mean to be taken there? Because a lot are saying, well, if he's going up into Yah's presence, he's dying. It's got to be a death. It's got to be a death because
he fathered Methuselah, which
Yeah.
lived the oldest. He
Yeah.
was the oldest man to ever live.
Enoch.
Yeah.
And then too, like when you think about, so all during those time periods, the one thing that I thought about too was that in the time period of Adam's great grandson, that's the time period that we see in history about the Sumerians.
Yeah.
And that, the Sumerians lived in the
Yeah.
region of the Mediterranean and the Tigris and Euphrates. That's where the first writing, we know came from, like with cuneiform. They used those styluses to write. Yep, they invented the wheel, they invented the water clock, they invented the plow. All of that happened in the time period Adam's grandson. And, they're the ones who came up with the math concept based on 360 degrees in a circle, that kind of thing. And, there are all kinds of other, advancements that are attributed. But when you think about it, I don't know, what exactly is about him that he was taken,
and all those.
But what is that, is that a good thing? Or, I don't know. We've always looked at it, well, that God took him, but is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know.
Well, usually it would say they went to live with their.
That's been a good thing.
Yeah.
Like they did.
I mean, that's been a good thing. That's why, because y'all did.
But it isn't a good thing to be taken in Matthew, where it talks about that those will be taken and left in the field. I want to be left behind there.
God's not doing that.
Because when you look at how that's talking about, the ones that are taken there are the ones that are taken in his wrath and righteousness. But he also did the flood too. Yeah. He said, oh my God. Yeah.
But but he closed the door and saved them.
Yeah, he saved them, yeah. But I was like, but still he took all those other people. Yeah. That's that same.
Well, he gave them 100 years for repentance.
Yeah, he did give them 100 years.
I was going through, I was checking, and I've got a lot of biblical people. I've got an Uncle Enoch.
Yeah, well, they used to name family members with
Solomon.
Yeah, they used to name them all those biblical names. So, but going back to, like, I touched on the good news, and then Ezekiel already talked about that, but I did want to look at this too, because, in Nahum 2:1, where it says, look, on the mountains are the feet of him who brings good news, proclaiming shalom. Keep your festivals, Yehuda, fulfill your vows, for Baalel will never pass through you again, and he has been completely destroyed. And so, here that word good news is also going back to that root being flesh, and flesh of my flesh and bone of my bone. Okay, the last part that I want to touch on here, and then we can get into whatever else y'all want to get into. But in Genesis chapter 2, verse 4, where it says, here is the history of the heavens and the earth when they were created, on that day when Yah Elohim made heaven and earth. So in that word for history is actually the word toldot. Okay. And what's interesting about this word here is in the spelling of it. Okay. Toldot. Yeah. And toldot is spelled Tav Vav, Lamed, Dalet, Vav, Tav. So, and this word is used many times in scripture, but it's not spelled that same way in other verses. Okay. So when you look up that word, it is used many times, but it's not spelled Tav, Vav, Lamed, Dalet, Vav, Tav, except one other place. Okay. And the only other place it's spelled that way is in Ruth chapter 4, verse 18, where it says, here is the genealogy of Peretz. Peretz was the father of Hetzron. Okay. So that verse and in Genesis are the only two, Genesis 2 and 4 are the only two places where it is mentioned or where it's spelled that same way. So why the difference? And this is what I think. In this verse in Ruth, we see, or in 2 and 4, we see that heaven, this is the history of heavens and earth when they were created, okay? Mm-hmm. This was before the fall of man. Okay. After the fall of man, or Adam, mankind was diminished or changed. And I think that the DNA structure of Adam was actually changed at that point. I think too that before he was eternal, and then now he's not. Okay. And that he was subject to sickness. He's subject to death. Yeah. And that it says in the beginning, Adam was created in Yah's image. And we see the change because in Genesis 5 and 3, notice that it says, Adam lived 130 years, and Adam fathered a son like himself and named him Seth. So who was Seth created an image of?
Adam.
Adam. He was like himself, not like God. Well, what had already happened when Seth was born? The fall had already happened.
Yeah.
So Seth is created in the image of the fallen man. Okay. But when we get to Ruth, we see the lineage starting with Peretz, and all of a sudden there's this change. We've got the word generations here with the word Peretz is now linked, and it's used, the Vav again is linked in this word Toldot. This is the only other verse that has that spelled that way. Peretz is the son of Yehuda and Tamar. Remember the story of Yehuda and Tamar? Okay. And it is through that lineage that Yeshua is born. Well, why is it linked with Peretz? Why didn't they do it further down the line? I think it's because of what Peretz's name means.
I started saying, what does his name mean?
His name means breach.
Oh.
Okay. And if we go to Ezekiel 22 in verse 30, look at what this verse says. Ezekiel 22, verse 30. I sought for a man among them who would build a barricade or to stand in the breach or the break to oppose me on behalf of the land so that I would not destroy it. But I found no one.
Who's the I?
Who's the I? Who's the I? So there was no one to repair the breach between man and Yah. So Yah sent Yeshua, and it's pointing back to that word Toldot, that it is through Peretz, that there's this breach, and that this is the line that Mashiach is going to come through. That's why I think it's linked with Peretz, that showing that Yeshua is the man that is going to breach that break between man and Yah.
The other son.
That's good. That's
Remember
good.
Tamar, and she was married.
All the brothers, yeah.
And they was none of them survived. So it came to the youngest son.
Yeah, and he wasn't old enough, and then
Right.
but this is
so she used the father.
Yep.
And and the father
It was through that. Yeah.
Yep. Came out in line.
If somebody asked you what the breach was, what would you say?
And the gap. Yeah, it was the, because of the sin of man. And then two, if we look at Genesis 3 and 14, Yah says to the serpent, because you have done this, you are cursed more than all the livestock and wild animals. You will crawl on your belly and eat the dust as long as you live. I will put animosity between you and the woman, and between your descendant and her descendant. He will bruise your head and you will bruise his heel. So think about this, what we're saying here, that this animosity between them, this prophecy is talking about Yeshua being the seed of the woman, and that there would be an animosity between Yeshua and this other seed, and if we think about, well, what is this seed? If we go to Luke, the parable of the seeds, he tells us the seed is the word.
It just occurred to me too. You said Perez's name means breach.
Yes.
So that's why the lineage of Yeshua came in. But also in a woman, Tamar, gave birth to Perez. This is why we think God chose it. A woman, if she's pregnant and can't have, if she has a breach,
maybe,
she can die unless she has an incision.
Right. Yeah.
They have to do,
like a cesarean and take the baby,
or she'll die.
Yeah.
And the child will. Ain't that something?
Yeah. To think about.
Whoa.
And to think about this animosity between these seeds. Are we partaking of Yah's seed or his word, or are we partaking of the serpent's seed? And then, okay, well, what is the serpent seed? And I know, a lot of people look at it, well, then there's this mixture of the lines that come down. But I'm looking at it like too, when you look at the parable, the seed here is talking about the seed is his word. And how did the serpent deceive Eve? It wasn't a blatant lie. The serpent mixed a lie with the truth. That's how he deceived Eve.
Yeah.
And so each seed is going to produce fruit. Yet a mixed seed will produce fruit that's going to look different than Yah's fruit.
Well, isn't that what is happening with the church or Christians today? A lot of them are mixing.
Right.
They're speaking truth, but they're mixing it with the world.
Yeah. And if you think about too, well, what, that fruit in their life is going to look different than what Yah's fruit should look like.
Yeah.
And, and this made me think about in Matthew chapter 7, where in verse 13, he talks about go in the narrow gate, for the gate that leads to destruction is wide and the road is broad and many travel it.
Yeah.
But it's the narrow gate and the hard road that leads to life. And that only a few find it. And it goes back to that remnant, and he goes on to say that beware of the false prophets, for they'll come to you wearing sheep's clothing, but underneath they're hungry wolves. You will recognize them by their fruit. And so, and that comes down to, which fruit are we producing? Are we really being a light and example of his fruit? Are we showing that forth and, showing Yeshua forth? Or are we mixing the fruit and watering stuff down? And it's basically, it's like if you try to plant a hybrid seed today,
Yeah.
What is it really going to produce? Angela
Go ahead.
has said, if you add or take away from the word, it's the seed of the devil. Yep.
Well, when you have to love your neighbors yourself. You have to love everybody, and you have to live that type of life without compromise.
Mhm.
You can witness to somebody or live a life, but if you compromise that to, show them, what you think is the right way, then you're just,
Right.
you're just on the fence,
Right.
so to say,
Right.
all the time. So, and that's the key. How do you witness? How do you live in this world? Live a good, holy, righteous life without compromising, because that's what's happening.
And that's what it's about. And I
That's
think
what's
that's,
happening.
like we've been talking about the, study on Revelations, which I'm going to still go back and do some of those, but that's what it's about. It is about how to live that life without compromise. And that it was even, you think about what they were going through during that day is the same thing that's still continuously happening.
Yeah.
So now, like I said, we could have gone lots of different directions with the study. This year I just sort of wanted to focus on how to find, that he's hidden there. The whole plan of Yah is hidden in the beginning. And, it's, a lot of times we don't see it there because he even said, Moshe wrote of me. And, a lot of people they don't want to say, oh, well, he's a picture of Joseph. He's a picture in this, but they don't see him from the very first parsha. They don't even see him. He's there in Genesis 1:1. He is there at the very beginning, and that the whole plan was already laid out there. So,
Right.
So, do you all have anything that y'all want to discuss at the end or verse or something? No.
That was good.
Yeah, I know we've already been talking a while here, so before it started. So, okay. That's the next marshal anyway. So listen to she's like, no.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So anybody else want to say anything?
Troublemaker.
No? Okay. Well, then I guess we will close out then. That will be for the end of there. So that was, okay.
That was good. That was good.
It's heavy because it's a lot of, but it's
a lot of information.
Yes,
and I know
Do what?
some of it we have, but still it's good to go over them because we forget something.
Right. And to think about, sometimes you don't even realize that some of those pictures that are there that, even in, with the the lapid esh and being the fire and the burning torch, and that how that was a picture of a messenger that was sent by Yah, and that it was also a picture of, you know, the first day being Yom Kippur.
And also, Genesis 1:1 links all the way to Revelation.
Yeah, and it links to Revelation. Yeah,
because you're picking up on other things.
Yep.
And you know, when we read that in Ezekiel about Yah was looking for somebody to stand, and you know, he says, I couldn't find anybody. You know, I couldn't do it. And you know, that's a shame on humanity, you know, like that, because Yah's all these millennium has been looking for righteous men and women, you know, to look to him, to come back to him, to remarry him. But you know, he says, I'll always have a remnant, because I'm always going to have someone that loves me, that comes to me. And so, you know, I think that struck me a lot, you know.
Well, I didn't even touch on that, but one of the things in the beginning is linked to the word being remnant.
Right. Well, I mean,
because in Bereshit, when we think about Rashid, we've got the word Sharit, which is remnant.
Right. So. Well, that's why when you had Judah and you had Ephraim, he divorced Ephraim, but he didn't divorce, Judah, even though Judah acted just as bad as Ephraim did. But he said, I will have that remnant.
Yeah.
And so he had that remnant because at the time, Judah, what did they do? They did repent.
Yeah.
They did repent. And Ephraim didn't. And the curse was added to it. So that's, you know, and it reminds me again of Jeremiah and Kenny. I think Kenny's still on here. It reminds me all the time of Jeremiah 6:16, where it talks about look for the old ways, the righteous ways, the good ways. And what did they say at the end? No, we will not do it. I'm going to tell you something. Every one of us, under the sound of my voice, when Yah asks you to do something, when Yah, gives us a calling, or shows us the truth, we better stand up and says, me, Yah, I will do it. I will pray. I will get on my knees. I will humble myself. I will love you more. I will pray more. Hallelujah. Thank you, Yah. If everybody wants to get ready, we'll bless the congregation, and may Yah bless you in all ways. Yeberakaka Yahava Verishmereha Yair Yahava Panava Ileka Vehuneka Yesayahava Pinalaka Vayashim Laka Shalom. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face to shine on you and show you his favor. May Yahweh lift up his face towards you and give you peace. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, Sar Shalom. Go in peace. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Keep praying. I want to give the congregation the word. stand and be still that Yah has given me. And I'm going to try to pick out a Shabbat that as many of us can be on and be here in person, and keep praying for that. And never forget, being a righteous man or woman as a Zedek is something to be proud of. Listen, living this life is not easy. It's not an easy thing. Paul said, I fight the good fight. But it's worth fighting. It's worth, living for Yah. For one day, we're all going to walk on the streets of go in the New Jerusalem, made by God's own hand and not man. And we're going to be walking there together, shouting and praising and glorifying Him. And there's so many things, good things are waiting for us that we can't even make them up in our own minds.
That's right.
And it's going to be there for all of us because He loves us. We love y'all. Bless you, and hopefully talk to you next Shabbat, and we'll be in touch with you. Thank you. Love y'all.